Distinguished public, my name is Giovanni Di Geraldo. On behalf of the team, we give you our best welcome and thank you all for your presence here and now, sharing this time with us. Le Laboratoire de la Recherche Musicale is pleased to present Desnuda Sabiduría, the first international congress on early music. In today's lecture, the artist will show the knowledge to play, embellish and make variations on Renaissance and Baroque music. Based on documents, scores and books from the epoch, I highly recommend this conference for scholars, musicologists, performers, and researchers about early music. Guitar performer, composer, researcher, and professor self-made, the lecturer will guide us through La Libertad Desnuda, the naked freedom, and get an approach to the experience itself. This conference is free. Nevertheless, we suggest you a free collaboration by using PayPal or your favorite credit cards through the link on the video description. Thank you so much. Dear all, let's welcome a self-made musician, Al Pérez.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for staying here today. Thanks very much for remaining just behind the screen. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your curiosity, for your presence here today, and also I would like to thank Le Laboratoire de la Recherche Musicale for giving me the opportunity to express on my own some musical ideas that I understand it could be interesting for the audience. This is the first International Congress on Early Music, and today's lecture is about how to ornamentate early music on a modern classical guitar. And after having been thinking about the theme, the subject, I have pointed out seven points to understand better, at least for me, because this is a huge period of time, and these 7 points I hope will guide us to understand better this music. The first point is an introduction. So we can define early music as the music that runs from Middle Age to the late Baroque. We understand by Middle Age a period of time that starts in the year 500 till 1450. We are talking about musical periods, right? Then we have the Renaissance. Renaissance starts thereabouts in 1450 to 1600. And then the Baroque runs from 1600 to 1750. And we have three different stages for the Baroque. The first one is called Early Baroque, which goes from 1600 to 1650. The Mid Baroque goes from 1650 to 1700. And then the Late Baroque, which goes from 1700 to 1750. So, because this is a huge period of time, we can establish a musical notation evolution through it. Since the 7th century, every monastery had its own signs to indicate the pitch of the sounds, but it was not precise enough, as monks used neumas over the syllables of the lyrics. This technique allowed them to interpret the music approximately, right? So it was not up to Guido Monaco d'Arezzo in the 11th century when he established the tetragram, 4 lines, so they could write the music in the lines or in the spaces. It was precise. So the melody was written in that tetragram. Then the tetragram turned it into a pentagram in the 14th century. And they wrote in C or in F keys indistinctly. We also find the first polyphonic document in the 9th century. All music written before that epoch was for just one melody, that is monody. Well, the musical forms evolution, it's something that it is palpable in the manuscripts, in the music written at the epoch. Because, as I told you before, it is a huge period of time. So, from plain chant, we get into the polyphony music texture in the 15th century. La chanson, French songs, became the sonata, the structure of the sonata. Recherche turned into toccata because the Recherche, there was a kind of prelude or postlude they used to play as a prelude or postlude, so it turned into a toccata. Later on, toccata and fuga, for example. Diferencias, as it was called in Spain, or variations, turn it into variations. For instance, Mozart, Beethoven, Fernando Sor, many composers have a theme with variations. And also, Renaissance broke out of polyphony, because till the 15th century the voices were not independent. There was a main voice, and the rest of the voices were written dependent on the main voice. And as I told you before, polyphonic music started in 9th century, and afterwards in the 10th, 11th and 12th century there was the organum parallelo. It was two voices, one of them maybe just one note ringing while the melody was sung melodically or syllabically, melismatically, melisma, one syllable for many notes, while another voice, another part is ringing just one note. Then we have two voices playing in fifth or fourth. Then we have the triplum. First the duplum, then triplum, then quadruplum. So becomes more and more wide the texture, till we reach the 15th century and 16th century with composers such as Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina, Cristobal de Morales, Tomás Luis de Victoria, Francisco Guerrero, and you name it. Also in the Middle Age, popular dances were developed time by time, were stylized and turned into the Baroque epoch, and different dance names such as major dances, for example, Allemande, Courante, Sarabande, and Giga. These are the four main dances for a suite. So composers gather the dances and put it together in a dance set called suite. Allemande, Courante, Sarabande, and Giga. Allemande was from Germany, Courante from Italy but adopted by French composers, then Sarabande from Spain and Giga from Ireland. Then we have minor dances: prelude, fugue, ouverture, lourd, minuet, gavotte, bourrée, etc. In the Middle Age, we had other kind of dances, such as carol, danza macabra, stampede, branle, tresche, tarantella. And as I said, these dances from the Middle Age turn it into the suite dances. Well, the second point is tablatures and bar types. And for this point, I would like to show you here one image. It's not this one, it's this one, yeah. There are three main tablatures in Europe in, let's say, in the 15th and 16th, 17th, since 15th century. These tablatures try to show the music for the composers to be played. And the first tablature is the Italian one. It consists of 5, 6 or 7 lines, one over another, where the first string of the instrument, guitar, viola, lute, tiorba, was represented at the bottom line of the tablature. Numbers meant the fret they pressed on. Then we have the French tablature. They use letters instead of numbers, and the first string of the instrument was represented at the top line of the tablature. So, while in the Italian tablature, the number 1 means you have to press on the first fret, the letter A in French tablature means you have to play an open string, and B would be the first fret. Finally, we have the third tablature, which is the Valencian tablature. Some authors call it the Spanish tablature, but I'm inclined to think that Valencian tablature is a better name, because it was given by Milan. Louis Milan was living in Naples around the 30s, in 1530, 35, 1520, 25, 30, till he came back to Spain to join the court with Charles I or V and Philip II, his son. And in Naples, they wrote tablatures with the first string of the guitar on the top line of the tablature. So it's very similar to the Italian tablature, but it's changing where the first string of the guitar or viola is represented. Right. For example, here in this image, we have a tablature by Louis Milan, published in Valencia, Spain, in 1535. He uses numbers, and the first string of the viola, this is 6 chords viola, so 6 double strings viola, and at the top line he writes the first string of the instrument, right? Take into account that he also writes the rhythm part above the top line, and he writes all the time the values. As we can see here, later on, just 13 years later, in 1546, this is a piece by Alonso Mudera, published in Sevilla, Spain, in 1546, for 4 chords guitar, Renaissance guitar, only 4 double strings. Every line represents a double string, which is called chords. In this tablature, we appreciate that he writes the rhythmical part above the top line, but only writes the change. So if the music doesn't change his rhythmical part, he doesn't write anything at all, as we can observe at the third stave, for example. He writes just when rhythmical parts change only. It is an Italian tablature using the first string of the guitar at the bottom line. Another tablature here is the Aria di Fiorenza by Carlo Calvi, published in Florence in 1646 in his book called Intabulatura per chitarra e chitarriglia, which was divided into two different parts. The first one was for strumming, and the second one to play plucking. And so it was a very normal practice at the epoch, write different styles in the same book, but not together, not mixed. This would be later on with Santiago de Murcia in 1714. He writes numbers and he writes letters, which means the chord you have to play. He also writes the rhythmical part only when it changes. This is a 5-chords guitar tablature. It's a Baroque guitar. 5 lines, 5-chords guitar. Similar to this one, which is about 60 years before. It's a 5-chords guitar, so a Baroque guitar. And he also writes here the rhythmical part only when it changes. All right. And tablatures were developed by introducing new signs for vibrato and fingering. For example, here in another image we have here, here we are. There are some ornamentation here for the signs, to showcase the signs. For example, in north of Europe, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, North Germany, they use this kind of signs we have here, kind of virgulas, kind of commas, to the left or to the right. We have here also l'acido, which is very used by Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. We also have the trinos, which are repeated notes. You can make a trino with an appoggiatura, a mordente. And we have gruppetos, mordent. There are different signs to write down this ornamentation. This is an ornamentation very special for Baroque music, since in the Renaissance music these signs doesn't appear yet. As composers, they make their own variations and improvisations over the structure is given. So, tablatures are developed by introducing signs for vibrato. As I told you, for example, Gaspar Sanz just write down a kind of sharp just before the number, before the cipher. Numbers, the tablature with numbers is called ciphers. Cifras in Spanish, ciphers in English. And sometimes he also writes to dot next to the number to indicate the finger you have to press with. According to its texture, tablatures can be plucked, alphabetic strummed, or both, plucked and strummed. Type of bars. Alright, let's go here now. Check here. Every composer and performer have their own signs to indicate the tempo. For example, Alonso Mudarra, he uses a priesa to indicate it was a fast tempo. Ni muy apriesa ni muy espacio to indicate that it was a middle tempo. He wrote a espacio to indicate that it was a slow tempo. Right? And moreover, Milan wrote redobles apriesa and consonancias a espacio. Redobles, it's a kind of scale to be played fast, and consonancias or consonances in English to be played slow. To a certain extent, there were similar bar signs as we can observe in the image in the screen. At the top left, we can see the circle, which was the perfect tempo, the perfect bar, which can be divided into entirely or the por medio, divided into two in a semicircle in the second row of the first column. Then the numbers represent the number of the quavers and semiquavers you have in the bar. The third row, we have the circle, which means the perfect tempo, but with a double. So it is a kind of 6/8 bar for us, for our musical notation, right? But it's just a kind of, right? In the 16th century, the most relevant musical forms were the following. They wrote transcriptions from polyphonic music. It was a very normal practice. So they wrote sections of the masses into tablatures for vihuela. Another musical form is compositions based on plain chant melodies. Many times, the plain chant melody is played all the time while the composition is being created from that line. Another musical form is the variation. Other musical form is Recherche. It appears as a prelude or postlude and becomes the toccata structure. Songs, they come from the French chanson in the 14th century and became the sonata form. Finally, we have the music to dance still remaining during the Baroque period, as I told before. Dances that were stylized. Right. The third point I would like to talk about is the Spanish Galana style versus French style. Here we have in the first stave, according to Tomás de Santa Maria's book called El arte de tañir fantasía, there are three ways to play the quavers. In the first one, the first stave, by stopping at the first quaver and playing fast the second one. This turned it into the French style later on called la pointe. It's a majestic, something like a bam, ba-bam, 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 bam, ba-bam, ba-bam, so something like that. Then the second one, by playing fast the first quaver and stopping the second one, being this way the Galana style practice all over Spain, which is just the opposite way. Ta-dam, 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 ta-dam. And the third one, by playing fast three quavers and stopping the last one, being this way the most Galana style. The fourth point in this lecture is about an equal rhythm. To practice this unequal rhythm, it's required first, keep the pulse, and second, play in the Spanish or French style. So you can take one of them or mix both. For example, pam, ta-da-dam, ta-da-da-dam, ta-da-da-dam, taking into account that whenever you play something like pam, ta-dang, ta-dan, you are playing French style. And when you play pam, ta-dam, ta-dam, ta-da-dam, ta-da-dam, you are playing Spanish style. Every differencia or variation has to add a new plucked, strummed, or both in the new variation. Milan himself and many other composers pointed out that the piece is to be played several times and each one has to be enriched with new embellishments by the performer. According to Tomás de Santa Maria, redobles are 2 consecutive notes and quiebros are more than 2 notes up and down. According to Milan, las consonancias or consonances, that is a long-term note, is to be played together harmonically in the beginning or in the end of the phrase and the piece. And then you keep ringing the notes there. But, however, los redobles, that is a group of notes played fast melodically between 2 consonances. All right. Then we have the 5 point. Strumming used as an ornamentation. Let me show you here another image. On top we can see some strumming. There are many treatises to accompany Baroque dances using strumming. For example, Luis Briceño in 1636, strumming, método muy facilísimo. Carlo Calvi, 1647, strumming and ciphers, as I told you before. And intabulatura per chitarra e chitarriglia. Then we have Santiago de Murcia in 1714, resumen de acompañar la parte de guitarra, which is a mixture between strumming and ciphers all together. And also we have Gaspar Sanz in 1674 with his Instrucción de Música. Embellishment signs. During the Baroque period, ornamentation signs take the value of the real note. During the Classicism, ornamentation signs take the value of the note before the real note. As we talked before, here you have the signs, the gruppets, mordentes, trinos, and some signs used in north of Europe. Other signs like trino, gruppetos, mordentes, apoyaturas were used all over Europe. Well, another interesting aspect is the ground bass. This is an accompaniment that consists of a bass line with numbers. These numbers represent the rest of the harmony. When a performer plays the ground bass, he uses his improvisation skill, and usually it is written to be played by organ, clave, viola di gamba, tiorba, guitar, etc. Performers develop a great deal of ornamentation as they go, accompanying the main voice or voices. Usually, it was made by a keyboard and viola di gamba. The point 6 is related to the evolutionary ornamentations. They are those ones coming from different aesthetic periods. While historic ornamentations follow documents and notations written in early periods, evolutionary ornamentations use resources from other epochs, as well as they can also use new instruments such as the electric guitar. For instance, evolutionary ornamentations may be used to perform an early music piece by using electroacoustics inspiration. Right, this lecture is just to give you a brief information, because this period is so complex and so huge that it would take a lot of time, and we have not that time to do that here. So to end this lecture, I would like to let you know a book list that I have selected for you concerning some special books that I consider the most important books to read, right? And the first book I have prepared for you is Música Práctica by Bartolomé Ramos de Pareja in 1482, Bologna, Italy. This book was published in Bologna, and it has 3 sections. The first one is praxis, practical. The second one is counterpoint or theoretical, and the third one is a metaphysics one. This gives us the idea of the thinking of the epoch. Always number 3 is appearing all the way along. So, theoretical, practical, and spiritual. The second book is Terminorum Musicae Definitorium by Johannes Tintoris, published in 1495, which is an incunabula as the first one by Bartolomé Ramos de Pareja, and I highly recommend this book. I mean the Johannes's book, because it's an approach to the metaphysics, to the counterpoint, to the theoretical ideas of the epoch. It is an incunabula book, and it was published in Trevi in 1495, and it is written entirely in Latin. The third book is Tratado de Glosas by Diego Ortiz, published in Rome, Italy in 1553. This is a must-have book, because in it the author shows us how to perform glosas from one note to another note from an interval, and also how to make variations and glosas at the end of the cadences. And the book is written in musical notation, because the violone had not tablature. The family of the violin read no musical notation, not on tablature, as organ, guitar, viola, tiorba, and so on. The fourth book is the Declaración de Instrumentos Musicales by Juan Bermudo. Juan Bermudo was a monk, a Spanish monk. The book was published in 1555 in Spain, and it's very important because he made a distinction between theoretical music and practical music, the divine sound, and the work consists of 6 volumes. However, at the Spanish National Library, there is 5 books only. In the 4th book, he makes interesting opinions and differences among the viola, guitar, and the viola and the guitar. The book number 5 is El arte de tener fantasía by Tomás de Santa María, published in 1565 in Valladolid, Spain. It's very interesting because he gives us ideas, as I said before, on how to play quavers in the Spanish and French style. He's talking about tañer a compás. So, tañer, play on poles. Step 4, you are playing fantasia. You keep the poles sometimes, but not always. You keep the poles for consonances, but when you play redobles, which is fast, you just play fast the notes. He also tells us that we have to make variations and glosses in all the strings, not only in the treble strings, but also in the low strings. The 6th book, the book number 6, is Vergel de Música Espiritual, Especulativa y Activa by Martín de Tapia, published in 1570 in Spain. This book contains 2 books. The first one is spiritual and the second one is practical. He also makes a difference between divine music and human music. Show you here in the next image. Here you are. The 7th book, it is entirely written in French, and it consists of 2 volumes which contains 19 books. It's being written by Marin Mersenne in 1636 in France. I highly recommend this book as well, because this book guides us to the physics of the phenomena harmonic, also to the theoretical part and the metaphysics. Finally, the last book, the 8th book, Método para aprender a tocar la flauta travesera by Johann Joachim Kantz, published in Berlin, Germany in 1752. It's an incredible book because it shows us the way to ornamentate, not only for flute, it's written for flute, but it really doesn't matter. You can play that glosses, that differences or variations in a guitar, on a guitar. But not only it is interesting because of the ornamentations, but also because he tells us how to approach to the starting parts of the dance suites. So, for example, the allemande, when you start playing an allemande, you have normally 3 notes. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. So, which direction you have to give that 3 notes? Da-da-da-dum, or da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da, or da-da-da-dum. So, he writes this kind of stuff in his book for many dances: allemande, courante, sarabande, etc. Thank you very much indeed for your presence here today, and before finishing, I would like to pass the art covers for the albums you can find in you can listen to in Spotify. You can download, you can buy it as well, and also for the front pages of the books you can find in the main musical shops all over the world. And I would like to let you know that tomorrow at 12 p.m., so midday, Madrid Local Time, we have another lecture by Masoud Rassei, an Iranian performer, professor, and researcher. And then at 19:30, so 7:30 p.m. tomorrow, we have the closing guitar recital concert, guitar recital, and which is called Desnuda Sabiduría. Desnuda Sabiduría is the name of this congress, the first international congress on early music. So thank you very much indeed, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.